to the wisdom flow. Revenue ramp, let's go, let's go. Let's go, let's go.
Hey, today we are excited to have Rohit, founder of the Insight Sales, joining us. Rohit is a specialist when it comes to demos. He'll be walking us through the essential do's and don'ts of delivering effective demos. I have been getting a lot of demos recently, and I will literally be enjoying this session. And I am like just hoping that it is so much insightful, right? So we will basically talk about how demos can be made better and how can we close more deals, right? Rohit, thank you so much for joining in. And if you can basically briefly tell us about yourself and the Inside Sales.
Absolutely. And, so good to be here. And thanks for inviting me, Ashutosh, and the team at Revrag. I think you guys are doing a phenomenal job. Talking about me, I come with about 18 years of experience in inside sales, worked with organizations like Oracle, where predominantly, that was the start of my SDR role, sold Siebel CRM back then in 2005, 2006. I've been in the Oracle ecosystem for some time, at that point of time, selling into the US market. So that was a product, but we never did demos back then, right?
Right.
I also had the opportunity of working with other companies, focusing on other geographies where I was selling solutions as well. I was selling services. And to the later part of my, sales career, I was focused on selling SaaS products, right? So that startup bug did bit me in 2015. And things were pretty different back then, right? 2015, 2014, that was the time when I was working with some B2B technology companies. The way we used to do demos were like pretty naive. So we weren't given the right kind of exposure. And the people who were seniors to us, they used to say, these are the features. This is what you have to say, mug it up, and then go and vomit in front of the client, right? So that was where we started. We did not understand at that point of time that there was a science behind it. But as and when you go along and do, say, hundreds of demos in a month, you kind of understand what is clicking with the client, what is not, where you have to, kind of add some flavor, where you have to like take a step back and look at what exactly is working. How
Right.
can you say things better? What else could have been done better and things like that. And now, for the last 5.5 years, I've been running this consulting agency of mine, wherein I help companies set up their inside sales practice. I work with SaaS and B2B technology companies. I also do the audit for them, wherein I look at what process they are running and how can they do things better. And while I was doing this, with my study and listening to other podcasts and implementing those with the clients, I kind of now understand, how things can be made better. So we've used these practices, of course, on a very subconscious level, you kind of use them while doing the demos. And I'm pretty sure, Akshot, you might have done, because you also give so many demos. So you might have done a few things as well. So yeah, that's my
Right.
background, running the inside sales consulting for the last 5.5 years, working almost with like 40 odd companies so far. Done audit for them, I've done consulting, and so on and so forth.
No, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Rohit, for that intro. So we'll jump in, right?
So yeah,
And let's start from the beginning, right? So how should sales professional prepare for demos, right? And what are the key elements to research, prepare in advance, and before going into the call, basically, right? So doing the research and what all the aspects of it are.
right. See, first and foremost, before you even get into a demo, I think every sales guy, whoever is doing the demo, he has to be in the right frame of mind.
Hmm, hmm,
If you are like jumping, and that's what I saw in you, jumping from one demo to the other, right?
hmm,
You don't get that time to kind of, take a breather or,
hmm, hmm.
I think that is very important, right? The number one thing that I would probably suggest the team or people who are doing demos is to have that right mental frame.
Right.
So take a walk, right? Or drink your coffee, or just stretch, do whatever you want, but get in the zone first thing. Second thing that typically helps people with demos is you kind of run it through in your mind, right? Kind of a role play with the kind of people that you are selling to, or the person who would be coming on the demo, or the people that who would be coming on the demo. Run through your mind as to what the conversation will be. If you have already done a discovery call and now you're getting into a demo, you already have kind of details about the people that you will be meeting on the demo. Have that manifest in your mind in certain way, right? And if you do that, I think your mental makeup would also be better, and you will be much more confident going into the demo, right? And some of the things that have always worked for me for preparing into a demo and while doing the demo is, number one is discovery, right? So
Makes sense. Yep.
what kind of questions you ask, and we'll probably go deeper into that, but what kind of questions you ask, and asking the right questions is very important. Second thing is having patience, right? We all, salespeople, we are rushing always to give the demo. We want to show all the features, right? And we really don't care because we are in a flow, right? We want to complete the demo. We want to rush things. We want to show all the features. I think the most important thing is have patience, wait to speak, and don't jump in if the client is talking about something. And then the third one obviously is listen properly. And I think in sales, it's very important to listen to, not just to listen, but to listen to understand what the client or prospect is saying. I think that is very important,
Right.
demo, right? And of course, the things that you said, what kind of research need to be done. I think the first thing, if you're selling into a particular industry, or you have use cases, so you have the understanding of that industry. So if your product is something that is vast and can be catered to any of the industries, then I think you need to understand, the client, his company, and the industry that he's in. I think understanding their business is very important, or else you will not be able to sync it up with the product that you are trying to sell there. One is the company, right? Second is the person that you're talking to.
Makes sense. Yep.
Who is this guy? Is he a ATL, OTL, or BTL? Is he above the
Can
line
you
on?
expand? Can you expand ATL and BTL?
Right. So when we look at the ICPs, right,
Right.
the kind of people that we are trying to reach, the buyer persona, there are few people who are above the line, which basically could be the decision maker or people who can sign check ultimately, right? Then you have your OTLs, who are basically on the line kind of people, who probably in scenarios could be directors or heads of certain departments, right? And then you have below the line people who are, let's say, managers and others, right? So BTL people are the people who would probably use your product end of the day, right? But they do not have the decision-making capability. Now, when you're showing a demo to these guys, it's very important to showcase how they would be using the product. For them, it's an operational thing that you have to show. OTL or ATL, the above the line people or over the line, those people, you have to be a little bit strategic, right? What's the ROI, how the product would probably solve a particular pain and things like that. So understanding the decision maker is very important. And one more thing, which is very important before starting a demo, is to have your technical setup done, right? What is your demo environment?
Right.
You want to show, nowadays we do a lot of online things, and we used to do it back in our day as well. So you have to see if you're getting into any kind of glitches, which could be due to bandwidth or any of those, right? And let's say you are demoing your product, so you're sharing your screen. So if you are on one screen, and then you need to have, a couple of more screens, if you can. These screens could be used for things like, having Q&As, or what could be your typical objections that you get during your demos. You could also have like a demo run sheet. Now, what is a demo run sheet? Is basically, your guidelines on the flow that you should be having for a particular demo.
Makes sense.
If you are catering to certain clients where they are from a certain industry, right? And you have already sold into that industry, you will have use cases. So having two or three use cases also, stories about those as well, that would be
That makes sense.
pretty good.
No, actually, it makes a lot of sense to have this run sheet. I think it is an awesome idea to have it while you are giving a demo. I think yesterday only, like, there were a few clients who were asking me these questions, and I didn't had it handy, right? I had to like go back and check from my mind space and share it, right? So I think, yeah, you're right. Having it handy would be really great, and it would give some confidence to the prospect as well. So like, and you like we have already chatted about like how should we show a particular product in the demo, right? But are there anything basically any specific questions that we should be prepared before actually going on the call? Is it like the same thing that you were saying? Is it the run sheet that we should be prepared
No,
for?
no, run sheet typically would give you a flow of the demo that you want to show. Right? It would differ from client to client. Let's say someone is coming in and you've already had a discovery with them, wherein you have understood their requirement, pain point, and you know that your product would probably help them in alleviating that pain or taking care of certain things. Then the flow would be slightly different, the way you want to structure your demo and stuff like that, right? So it basically depends on understanding the requirements first. So what would be the prospect's needs and how to, kind of take that out even before getting into a proper demo, right? Before you show your product, I think you need to have that understanding of the prospect, right? We did touch upon that, but most important thing before getting into a demo is discovery.
Right. I think, yeah.
How do you basically define a discovery? Is basically, it's a process, right? It's not one question. It's not the BANT and ANM and all those qualifying questions that people ask. It's a proper process of collecting the information, right? So that we are able to give a precise proposal to a solution or a problem that the customer has.
Makes sense. Yeah. Yeah.
So when you get into discovery questions, right, you basically ask what is their current solution, what are the challenges that they have. And oftentimes what we have seen is the SDRs and BDRs are doing the discovery. It is fine if it is a smaller, or should I say low touch, low value kind of a product. You can have your SDRs and BDRs to ask those discovery questions. But if it is like you're selling into the enterprise segment, right? You're selling to multiple decision makers and stuff like that. So in those cases, you would want your AEs to pick it up, right?
Makes sense. Yep.
You need your AEs to ask those questions. And basic things is how does this prospect perceive success? What are the problem and what he wants change like? Right? So those can probably be defined as success metrics for the demo. And then you focus on their problems and what it gets affected. So are the teams getting affected, timelines getting affected, any kind of urgency is there so that they want to do something else after this problem is kind of.
Makes sense. So like talking about demo itself, right? How should a demo be structured from the mm, from the opening to the close, and what are the most important things that you think from the beginning, middle, end, how the demo should end? Is there any specific uh, like outlines that a person should have?
See, let's focus on, say, SaaS kind of a scenario, right? SaaS products that we are selling. And now, so many products in the market, so much of competition. There's a highly, likeliness that a company has already used a similar product if they have a long standing, right? So like you guys are into AI SDRs, right? So there are certain big companies who have already tried using a AI BDR, SDR kind of product. Right? So the first and foremost thing before you kind of get into the structure of the demo also is to understand whether where that prospect is coming from, right? Is he a prospect who has already used a similar product before, or is he someone who's like fairly new? The reason you should know this is if someone has already used similar product, he already knows the basic things. Then he only wants to see how you are different from the competition or how you are different from whoever he has used before. The second kind of a person would be someone who's completely new. For him, you can get into the explanation and all. So whatever you do, you have to have an opening. How do you open that demo? The middle section, which is like the main section where you're going deeper into the product, showing certain features, talking about benefits, etc., etc. Right? And then finally, you have your close. So if you have to like go a little bit deeper in the opening, I think to set up the tone of the demo is very important. Let's say you've done discovery. We just spoke about discovery questions, he's asking that and making notes of it. Now there's certain understanding of the age, right? When you're opening your demo, you need to kind of go through with the client that XYZ was what was discussed last time. And we will be focusing on what we have done the discovery for. And today I'll be showing you, showcasing the product on how those particular things can be addressed. So
Makes
that
sense,
has to be opening. You have to have a verbal sign off with the person or different people, multiple people if they are on the demo. You need to cater to multiple people as well, right? So if it is a one-on-one, it's much easier. But if you have new people joining in on the demo, you need to understand who they are, why they are there, and give a quick backdrop of the discovery and ask them whether there's something else that they would like to see on an independent note. Like someone from marketing has joined, someone from operations has joined. They would probably have a very different take on how they perceive or they want to look at the demo or the product.
Makes
So
sense.
that should be your opening, wherein you kind of spend few minutes on breaking the ice. Don't talk about, hey, how are you and all that, right? I think that's a very childish way of starting the things. Probably once, if you know who's joining, I think spend a couple of minutes in understanding who they are and stuff like that, right?
Makes
Middle
sense.
part is where you kind of showcase the key features to them, which should be solving their problems. And let it not be like a monologue. I think you have to take and ask feedback after you show everything, right? You're showing a particular feature, you just ask it. And I think storytelling in this middle part is of a very good way to hold on to the attention of people. And finally, the close, right? You have to summarize the kind of value that you are bringing to the table. And
Makes sense.
And one of the most important thing in the closing is to get your next steps laid out. I think that's number one mistake that people do is not having a next steps defined. And you can summarize the meeting and then say, okay, what next? Should I be sending you a proposal, or would there be a need for more people to look at the demo? Who those people would be, etc.
Makes sense. And what is the optimum time that you think a demo should be? Like I have it around 30 minutes, right? But I have realized that, okay, I'm not getting enough time in 30 minutes probably. So what have you seen from the industry perspective, like for SaaS B2B or even like for other technology companies, right? What is the optimum time period that a person should have to basically demo, get to know each other, and then probably close?
What I would suggest, if it's not a very complicated product, is to have a first meeting, more plus discovery kind of a meeting for just 30 minutes. Why am I saying demo plus discovery? Is that's like, let's say you got an inbound lead or your SDRs have made, the meeting booked and stuff like that, wherein you don't know who the people are. And what we're trying to do here is to understand who they are, break the ice, understand what their problems are, and then show a little bit of your product, right? Say for about 5 minutes. So you do 10 minutes of discovery wherein you're asking questions, 5 minutes of the initial, introductions, and about 5 odd minutes of product demo. And you just show the key feature. That's it. Don't get tempted on showing everything, and say that, hey, this is what it is. If this is in line with what you are also looking at, we can get into a deeper demo. If he is okay and you also have time, you can continue on the demo wherein you show much more, features and benefits, what product does, etc. But if there are other stakeholders who need to come in, or if it is like a 1 hour demo that you're planning to give, I think it's better to book another uh, call with them, or set up another demo with them and then take it forward, because they will be mentally prepared for that 1 hour or 45 minutes kind of a thing. But to begin with, if it is like a long process that you guys are into, enterprise products, I think you have to break down, right? You cannot show everything at one go. You have to
Yeah.
understand what should be shown in the first phase and then take it to the next phases, depending on kind of product that you have and the markets that you're chasing.
No, absolutely. I think you have covered a lot of things there, and I had those questions, right? So I think for me, as you were saying, so it is like 30 minutes as of now, right? Probably it makes sense to keep it at 30 minutes, and then if needed, we can go in the detailed demo of sort, where like we can show more on the product, what it does, and how it can help them, right? So we know that clients often bring up pricing at the beginning, right? Most of like while giving a demo, I've realized because they are concerned of the pricing, like what may come, it might be a very uh like pricey product of sort, right? So they sometimes bring pricing in the starting of the demo itself, right? So how should a salesperson tackle that or handle that while not basically getting the impact on the demo itself?
Yeah. Nice question. See, there are multiple facets to this particular scenario, right? And I think these challenges are omnipresent when you're selling into the Indian market or Asian market for that, right?
Hmm.
People do ask what's the price, probably at
Hmm.
the beginning of the thing, right? So let's take a
Hmm.
step back, right? It depends on what kind of product you have and what kind of pricing structure you have, right?
Hmm.
If your product is a simple SaaS based subscription kind of a model wherein you have 3 tiers, free or freemium model, wherein free you have certain features, then you have two more pricing options there, which is already there on your website.
Hmm.
In
Hmm.
such a case, I think you should be open and tell the prospect as to what the pricing is upfront, right?
Hmm.
But let's suppose you're selling slightly complicated products where the pricing basically depends on multiple factors or the modules that these people would be choosing and stuff like that. Right? So there are multiple layers into the product. In such a scenario, I think it's very important to kind of not kind of offend the client, but in a way tell them that, hey, Mr. Client, I understand that pricing is a concern or is a matter of interest for you, but before we go there, can we just look at what the product offers? Can I just ask a few more questions to understand your requirement better, so that then I'll be able to cater to the question of yours on the
Yeah.
pricing? So
Yeah.
it will make sense to you once the value is clear. If the value is not clear to you and I give you a vague pricing, then end of the day it will be like you probably will feel that my offer or my solution is pretty
Yeah.
expensive, or things like that, right? So it's always better to say that, hey, we love to discuss that. Let's push it off to slightly later in the conversation today, and I'll come back to that and I'll address this.
Makes sense. I think you rightly said. I think sometimes if we tell the pricing upfront and even like disclose it, some people might think, okay, the product is too pricey and they have not seen the value of it or how it will be interacting or how it will be used. So it makes sense, I think. And one more important point that you mentioned was key, if the pricing is already opened on the website, so there's no hiding of sort, right? Because
So
everybody knows what the pricing is. So absolutely. Uh, we have also seen like there are questions coming from the product perspective, right? While giving the demo, right?
yeah,
There might be some features that are not there in the product yet. It is a
yeah,
very common
true.
thing to have, right? So how do we handle that in such a graceful way that basically a client is also getting to see, okay, they are very open to basically get that done, or like uh, even let's say we are not going to build it, then how can we basically tackle that?
Two scenarios, right? But before we go into that, and it reminds me of my days when we used to do
Uh,
the product demos, especially true for a product which is still naive, new to the market, hasn't had those iterations, and has become a very solid product like the HubSpots
Makes
and
sense.
Salesforce of the world, right? If you're talking about a new product coming in and someone asks you, hey, do you have so and so feature or things like that?
Mm,
As a sales guy, I think you should know what features your product already has, what
mm,
are being built. So you
mm,
have to be in those discussions with the tech team and know their sprints and all that. But when it comes to answering the question directly of the prospect, I think
mm,
you have to tell them that if it is there, obviously you show it, right? If it is not there, then you have to say, hey, this is something that's still, in the pipeline, and the team is working on it. I
mm,
probably will not be able to give you a particular timeline as to when that would be ready. But what I can tell you is surely that's on the way, and you will, very soon we should be having that. That's number one. Number two, scenario where we know for sure that the feature is not there, right? It's not coming in the next 1 year at least, let's say.
mm,
Then what we can say is just so that's an objection kind of a question, right? So we need to check with the client as to why is it important for them? Is that a deal breaker?
mm,
Have they kind of encountered such a scenario in the products that they've been working with
mm,
earlier? So what
mm,
exactly is the context here? Is he just
mm,
asking out of the blue, or is he making sense and that's like a real issue for him to have that feature? So it could be a deal
mm,
breaker for us, right? So we need to
mm,
be very sure on where he's coming from. What is his
mm,
psyche behind it? And let's
mm,
say we know that the feature will not be there and it is important for him. What do
mm,
we do then? I think the best way to play there is once you understand what his requirement is, you have to look
mm,
at your own product and see if there is a workaround wherein, maybe with some other feature, you can give a 60-70% of the solution to him, something like that. So if that
mm,
is possible, we need to do that. If it is not possible, I think, just tell them that, hey, sorry, I think this particular feature is not there with us. I'm not sure if it is in the sprints, but I can certainly discuss with our team and, we can get.
mm. No, makes sense, I think, yeah. Uh, Probably knowing about the product, as you said, is really very important. What is in the pipeline is very important. You should be interacting with the dev team or the product team to know what all things are coming on the way, what are things, what can be committed over the call. I think that makes sense. Uh, is there a way for a seller to basically, like, any tools that you recommend or any tools that you have seen sellers being using for actually tracking the pipeline of sort, or like how commonly it is done?
See, specific tools back in the day, I think we never used to share recordings and all, kind of tools for. Are you asking for the tools to be
No, sir.
used during the demos?
No, I'm asking majorly like between the sales team and the product team, like majorly how often those discussions should be, and even like if there should be a roadmap for it, or like seller should have it handy, like your run sheet, right? That you were saying, or is there a tool that people use?
No, I don't think a tool is needed for that. Of course, you can have internal communication on Slack and all of that.
Yeah.
I think it's important if you can to have those daily stand-ups where the sales team, the tech team, the
Mm,
product team, everyone is involved, wherein the marketing and sales team basically gives the input on what the market is asking, what they are getting the feedback
mm,
on the product,
mm,
what are the new features that they would be wanting to see in the product, etc. From the tech
mm,
and the product team, they can give an update on where the product is right now, how is it growing, what are the plans for the future, etc. So there
mm,
has
mm,
to be that sync up between the teams. When if it is like a very new team, very small team, I probably would suggest do it every day.
mm,
And this is what we used to do back in the day as well. I was working with a company called Handy Train, which was very new
mm,
at that point of time, selling learning platform. We used to have a daily
mm.
stand up. right?
Yeah.
Wherein we share the information, and I was the head of inside sales there, so I had to collate all that information, pass it on to the tech team, and those people would plan on what their sprints would be and how they would come back with the feature availability and stuff like that. One important thing here is, sorry, you are a
No.
product guy, but whenever the tech team says that, okay, within 3 months this feature will be ready, so you can go ahead and tell your prospects. Never do that. If the tech team says 3 months, you tell 6 months to the prospect, or else the salespeople will be in soup.
No, I can totally understand that. And I have seen scenarios where we have committed something, even like texting. So even when a product manager is telling you 3 months, he has added his 1 month buffer,
Fair enough.
right? So, but I think you're right. If something is being told to you, probably add some buffer and then tell it to your customer. That makes perfect sense. So you briefly touched upon that storytelling is important earlier, right? But I want to know more about how actually storytelling can make a difference in your demos, right? What is some of the examples, if you can share, right? How impactful it is while doing a demo and covering it. It is similar to pitching to a VC, right? Because
Yeah.
if you don't have a story, then probably your neither your prospect nor your investor will be investing, or prospect would be buying, right? So how important it is to have a story.
Very important, yeah. And not just on a sales demo perspective. I mean, just think about it. If you just go back in your memory on the things that you've done in the past and stuff like that, you always weave it in a story when you're telling it to your friends or your family or your kids or whoever, right?
Yeah.
Because stories stick, right? And we were told stories of the Mahabharata, of the Ramayana and all that. And the stories are still with us, right? If it was like a Gyan session on certain things, you would probably forget. How many of you remember what was taught in the school formatting? None of us, right? But the stories stick, right? So stories are very important. Coming to the sales demo aspect of it, I think, uh, customer stories are the most important thing, only for the sales perspective, right? Stories can be used for interviews. I think interviews are short stories that we is giving to the interviewer, right? So if you're using stories in the right way and weaving it in a proper way, that stick. So coming back to the sales demos, as I said, customer stories are very important. If you ask me, I come with about 18 years of experience. I can give you stories which have stuck in the mind for a long time, which I used to use while doing presentations and talking to clients and all of that. Right? But do I remember everything? Absolutely no. I only remember few that were like very impactful. And everyone has these stories, right? So a sales guy who is reaching out to a prospect would probably end up having, let's say, 20 conversations on a weekly basis, for example. He would easily make one or two stories from there. And I was listening to this guy called, I think, Nathan Gold, right? He's also known as a demo coach. So what he suggests is to create a kind of a story matrix, right? And share it within the team, and not just for sales. Your product team could do it, your entire company could do it, right? Entire organization can do it. So what you do is you collaborate on various stories, and they can be under, let's say, 4 different heads, right? And I think, if I remember right, what he had mentioned was, one is success and failure. So success, failure, those are your heads. Then I think it was something like a fun or a humor kind of a story. And then finally, it was the legend stories. Legend stories are things like some great achievement that the company has done, or closed a very good big deal, or let's say they have secured a Series A funding, or anything like that, right? Or maybe a very good investor has come in. All of these things are stories. The way you can put them in the matrix that you're creating, people can just use it, right? It could be your story, it could be someone else's story. So it doesn't need
Right.
to be like my story that I'm giving out to my client. It shouldn't be like, oh, you know what? Once, I was working with a company called XYZ in so and so industry, and they were facing this problem. This is how we, responded to them. This is what we helped them, and we closed it. This is my story. I know it better. I'm telling you. But I can also say something like, hey, you know what? One of my colleagues, Stosh, where's the product? He had a very different version of this. And then I go deeper into that and give a anecdote or however you put it. But the whole idea is if you're putting all those things in one place, your stories will be there. And people who come after you, or new joinees and things like that, they can also use the stories. I think storytelling is like the key.
Makes sense. Makes sense. So, like, we are on to the last part of our podcast here, but would love to basically know because there will be a lot of objections that will be coming in, right? As you touched upon this briefly earlier as well, but want to know, like, while basically having some objections, it might ruin some trust sense as well, right? Because you need to build up trust. If they should be able to understand, okay, you are able to cover all your objections, navigating through your objections, right? So how do you suggest, like, what are the best practices for navigating through the objections and not getting derailed from the main function of showing the demo, doing the demo? Are there any right questions we can ask them back in order to basically navigate through that? Anything on that piece?
Absolutely, right. So it's the way you handle the objection. Objections do come. Objections come during cold calls. Objection comes during demos. At any stage in the sales, right, the objections might come. And those people are taking time during responding on the proposal that you might have shared and things like that. So the way you handle it is very important, having the right mindset. If you ask me, are there any specific questions? They could be scenario based, right? But if I have to just tell you, how do I handle the objection? Let's say you say something to me, and what I would do is, number one, don't get offended and push you back. As a prospect, I don't want to push you back or say something that's not the right thing, right? What I would probably do is acknowledge what he's saying. So if he's saying this feature is not good, and we probably don't need this particular feature and all that, right? So you can say something like, hey, I understand this is a fair concern that you have. And it's not like you are the only one who's mentioning this. I've heard from other people also who we have shown the demo and things like that. But can I ask you a question? Tell me, in this particular feature, what exact functionality are you looking for? Because the reason why I'm asking you that is, while we probably might not have a particular feature that you are looking for right now, but the other clients that we're working with, they probably have used a kind of an option that still gives them the result. So the way you handle it is kind of acknowledge and validate his objection, and then ask him a probing question as to why exactly he feels so, or, what exactly is the issue there. And then in a way, reframe the question or try to not completely avoid the objection, but how do you kind of flip it in a way, or play it properly, and answer the entire objection in a way that you reframe the issue.
Great, great. So I think you have covered mostly about objection. I have one question which is more sort of on upselling, not upselling actually, overselling, over committing. Or this is basically, now that we are in the AI world, right?
Yeah.
Things are moving from basically optimization, from efficiency to majorly to outcome driven, right?
Yeah.
So people are asking for, like, we are not that much interested in, let's say, one feature. We are most interested in seeing the outcome, right? And like there will be a lot of overcommitting that would be happening right now in the AI world, right? So how do you basically suggest, like, how to handle those questions, how to handle those uh, overcommitting? Why should we do the overcommits? You must have seen a lot of
Why?
people for selling do overcome it, right? And that's
Yeah.
how churn happens, right?
Yeah.
So, w- like, how do you think how this can be handled, and is it good or bad?
Okay. Um, so I've faced these scenarios, right? Both as an executive and as a manager, right? I think in sales, right, because you know that a particular feature could be a deal breaker, and there are scenarios where salespeople just overcome it and say that, don't worry, this feature will be there in the next couple of months. Go ahead and buy the product, and they are happy and they are done because they have got their incentives, and it's against their name. Right? But the problem starts when the onboarding happens and a couple of months go by and the product does not have that feature. Right? So overcommitting, in my view, is a bad thing. Right? You
Right.
only commit to those things which you already have, which are not in beta test or anything like that, but they are like a proper working feature. Of course, there will be other additions going on and stuff like that, but what exactly is the client's key requirement? And if this requirement needs that particular feature, I think a better way to do it is just say that, hey, Mr. Client, we don't have this. And if you know that a competitor has it, probably go ahead and say that, right? Hey, Mr. Client, we don't have this as of now, and I don't think it will be done in the next, say, 1 year. But if it is like an immediate requirement for you, I know for a fact that XYZ company, who is our competitor, they have it. So you can probably go check with them. That's on the morality and ethics side as well.
Right.
I think this question is that only, right? So as a salesperson, I think we shouldn't overcommit and, just for the sake of sale, go ahead and sell it to them. I think being a consultant is a much more better way. I've seen cases where back in the day I was selling into DTDC. It took me 1 year to close a deal. They were having certain requirement which did not fit in. But then they came back after a year and we closed a good deal there. Things will come back. You just have to do the right things. Probably this is on our ethics.
No, thank you so much. So now, as we wrap up, could you share some final tips or key takeaways for our listeners who want to level up in their demo skills?
And demo skills. See, everyone has their own product, the market that they are selling into. Having those basic understanding is one thing. Nowadays, it's more of video conferencing. People see you, so the attitude that you carry is very important. You
Mm,
need to smile. You need to be confident, and you should be happy about the product that you're selling. I'm
mm,
telling this from my own experience. There were scenarios where I was in a company selling a product which I had no interest in selling. And I did a shit job there, right?
mm,
So love the product that you're selling and be
mm.
happy. Don't show negative emotions on the call while you are talking to the prospect on the demo or any stage, basically. Right? And like to end it with a quote here, right? So it goes something like this, right? So prepare as if you have never done it before, right? And
Mm.
perform as if you have never lost. So
Great.
prepare for your demo as if you have never done it before so that your complete 100% focus is on that. And when you are actually giving the demo, behave as if you have never lost. That will give you the confidence.
Makes sense. This is a great quote. I'll start following this quote. I'll write it on my laptop. By the
Yeah.
way, I want to know, like, if you can tell us a number, like, how many demos from the start till now you must have given? Any like around number?
Uh, I never used to keep a count of that, but during my handy train days, I spent about 2 years there. I was head of the inside sales. And I used to be
Mm,
the AE as well, basically, right? So I used to
mm,
get the meetings.
mm.
Must have done in those 2 years close to about 4,000, 5,000 demos.
4,000. And no, total till now. Even if let's say total demos till the
Should
lifetime.
should be more than, say, 12, 10, 12,000.
My God, 10, 12,000 demos. You are a working
But
learning machine.
let me tell you, my calendar never looked like yours, okay? We used to get like 1, 2 demos in a week. Good week, probably 4. Yeah, that was the thing. I think people should start looking at a AI SDR tool to make sure their calendars are filled up like yours.
No, no, absolutely. Thank you so much for that. It was a lovely session. Thank you, Rohit. Such an insightful and valuable things that you have shared with us. It was a pleasure having you on the revenue ramp. And so one thing I would like to ask, like, how can our listeners can get in touch with you if they want to basically learn more about sales and the inside sales?
Well, they can follow me on LinkedIn, and if they want to connect with me on LinkedIn, I'm more than happy to. And about what we do, I think things are there on our website. So please go and check theinsidesales.com.
Thank you so much, Rohit. It was lovely having you.
Thank you so much, Ashtod.